Just 11 days ago, Trump got rid of key figures in the FAA and froze funding on hiring for new FAA employees, including air traffic controllers, leading up to just 10 days later, this terrible plane crash in DC. And now in Trump's press conference this morning, he blamed it on DEI. This man knows no bounds when it comes to getting his political agenda across and blaming other people. Real men stand up and say and take the blame and say, we need to come together. We need to figure out what happened, not before anybody investigate or anything, blaming DEI hires. Is he serious? Let's watch the press conference.
One family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. That icy Potomac, it was a cold night, cold water. We're all overcome with the grief for many who have so tragically perished, will no longer be with us. Together we take solace in the knowledge that their journey ended not in the cold waters of the Potomac, but in the warm embrace of a loving God. We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have.
Trump's got very strong opinions. No investigations have been done, but he's got very strong opinions. Let's hear what they are.
Have some pretty good ideas, but we'll find out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job.
So if you didn't already know, the plane collided with a Black Hawk helicopter, apparently with a 3-man crew. No names have been given yet, but Trump's about to say it was a DEI. It was the fault of DEI hires, diversity, equity, and inclusion. In other words, saying it was black and brown people and women who caused the accident.
When that happened, it's a rough one. We'll be working tirelessly. He's a great gentleman. The whole group these are great people, and they are working tirelessly to figure out exactly what happened. We will state certain opinions, however. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the FAA, Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed.
So I guess the hiring freeze is over now. He's hiring again. Now that there was a tragedy. Okay, Trump.
The Obama standards, from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job.
So he's blaming President Obama, who hasn't been president for 10 years, and he had a 4-year term in between then. Is that what he's saying? Help me understand.
Job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way.
Yes, it was very powerful. Very powerful. Does anybody believe this guy anymore? Come on. He's so full of it. If there's anything he's a master of, it's deflecting and blaming other people for his mistakes. He's done it his whole life for almost 80 years.
Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent.
That's interesting. It doesn't matter what they look like, huh, Trump? How come every woman in your administration is a prime age for birthing blonde woman? Doesn't matter what they look like? He's so full of shit.
They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives.
Trump just sent out one of his cronies to go look that up. Oh, go find something on the internet that's going to prove they hired DEI hires at the FAA. The FAA is thousands of workers, not just air traffic controllers. There's people that do all kinds of jobs there. This means nothing. This is just clickbait for his MAGA sycophants. He's so pathetic.
So this is a tragedy that should not have happened. Please, Sean.
Okay, let's hear from the new head of the Department of Defense, the drunken woman abuser, Pete Hegseth.
I would echo it as well. No excuses. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We first and foremost, from the Defense Department, want to pass our condolences to the 64 souls and their families that were affected by this.
By the way, this guy's got a Nazi sign tattooed on his chest, or a white supremacist sign. It's like this big or something. He's a real piece of work. New head of the biggest Department of Defense in the world, one of the biggest agencies in the world, with the biggest budget in the world, nearly $1 trillion. Trump's real responsible.
Never should happen. And certainly the three service members, the three soldiers, a young captain, staff sergeant, and CW2, chief warrant officer, on a routine annual retraining of night flights on a standard corridor for a continuity of government mission. The military does dangerous things. It does routine things on the regular basis. Tragically, last night, a mistake was made. And I think the president is right. There was some sort of an elevation issue that we have immediately begun investigating at the DOD and Army level. Army CID is on the ground investigating. Top-tier aviation assets inside the DOD are investigating,
okay, that's
sir.
enough of that.
To get to the
Now let's hear from the mascara-wearing emo chubby kid from Ohio.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. I just want to reemphasize something the President said, and you've heard from the Secretary of Transportation and of Defense. There really was a whole of government response. We were all on the phone. We were all communicating yesterday, trying to get to the bottom of this immediately, but also try to communicate with the American people about what happened. Something the President said that I think bears reemphasizing which is that when you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means on the one hand, you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there. And I think that is a core part of what President Trump is going to bring and has already brought to Washington, D.C. is we want to hire the best people because we want the best people at air traffic control, and we want to make sure we have enough people at air traffic control.
Yes, and by God, the best people cannot be black, women, or people of color. They're chubby white kids like this idiot.
Who are actually competent to do the job. If you go back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years, you have many hundreds of people suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin. That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority of our aviation industry. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Mr. President, on DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring, and what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power, you have to go by psychological quality, and psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden.
Psychological quality coming from a sociopathic narcissist who cheated his way through college. Brain power.
And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had two planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened. And we'll see. We're going to look into that, and we're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior, and that's what we're going to have. Yeah. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, you mentioned at the top of the briefing that there were several Russian nationals on the flight.
Yes.
Will the U.S. government be willing to facilitate the transfer of their remains, considering
Yes, we
the
will.
fact there is no direct air travel between the two countries?
We've already been in contact with Russia, and the answer is yes, we will facilitate. I can't imagine people with 20/20 vision not seeing, what's happening up there. Again, they shouldn't have been at the same height.
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. You then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major
Yes, he's blaming diversity, equity, and inclusion because he has common sense. Not a shred of evidence, but he's got common sense. Does he, though? Okay, guys. Thanks for watching the Spin Cycle. Go ahead and comment on any of my commentary here on what you think freezing the hiring at the FAA did, and if you think this is Trump's fault, Obama's fault, Biden's fault. I want to hear it all. Subscribe, like, share, comment. Thank you. See you next time.